Hey guys, Brawless here, and welcome to my review of Maximum Action. Yeah!
Dylan! You son of a bitch.
So this game was created by, I believe, one guy. His name is George Mandel, an American developer, and published by a company called New Blood Interactive. I hadn't heard anything on the game. I didn't even know it existed. It came out, I believe, September 18th, 2018, and it just kind of flew under the radar for me, as you know, a lot of really cool indie game gems do. And so I'd never heard of it until I was playing my friend Pedro, working on my review for that, and it popped up in my recommended playlist on Steam. So I took a look at it and I was like, well, let's check out these reviews, blah blah blah, and it seemed to have pretty good positive feedback. People were saying don't take it too seriously. I mean, the game doesn't take itself seriously. It's just a carnage simulator. You jump in and you just blow shit up and you have a good time, and then you rinse repeat throughout the missions and whatnot. So I was like, well, for $12, fuck it, why not? I'm gonna give it a shot. So I ended up picking it up. As I'm jumping into the menus, it's very 80s inspired. It's like 80s inspired from movies like Rambo, Commando, Die Hard, Escape from New York, Cobra, movies like that with like Stallone, Schwarzenegger, all those types of actors, even Tom Cruise, Mel Gibson, stuff like that. So the game is just all about, okay, how fast can you get from point A to point B, and how many points can you rack up with headshot kills, jumping through glass, going into slow motion, how many kills can you rack up just in one slow motion try, things like that. So I was like, this game speaks to me. I need this game.
And I need you. And I miss you.
So if you take a look at my settings here, I have everything set to 4K Ultra settings. I turned all the bars all the way up, including the blood, the ragdoll physics, the amount of bodies on the screen. Everything is jacked up as high as it could possibly be so I can have the maximum effect. I mean, this game doesn't look crazy good at all. It looks kind of shitty in like a charming way. It was made by 1-2 guys, something like that, so I didn't expect anything crazy, but it looked better than I thought it would. Performed better too. I mean, in 4K, during even the most heated scenes, I was getting a steady 60 plus frames per second, even 120 or more during like regular combat scenarios. But for the most part, the game ran smooth. It looked great for what it is. Didn't take itself too seriously. One of my favorite parts of the game is as you're shooting stuff, like there's debris flying everywhere, papers, pieces of wood, pieces of the wall, the drywall coming off, and stone coming off. So it's just absolute carnage, and the game does what it does super well. Engine-wise, it looks something very similar to Quake 2's Quake engine in a sense, where everything is kind of flat, the textures are kind of bland, but you kind of know what you're getting. But the game runs really smooth, and that's obviously a huge part of making sure that you have a good experience, is that everything runs beautifully smooth. So the graphics aren't anything to write home about, but it still has its own charming look. I mean, even the characters, dude, they look ridiculous. The characters look like something mixed out of Minecraft with like Quake 1, Quake 2, and even the characters look like the enforcers from Quake 2, with the big blocky arms and legs, and they're just like a giant rectangle square shape. It's pretty funny. When you shoot them too, they go on the ground and they squirm around until you actually finish the job. Basically, you want to keep an eye on their hand to make sure that when they drop their gun, you know that they're dead. Because if you do the wave-based modes, which I'll get into a little bit later, you can't progress into the next wave until they're fully killed. So before you hop into the game, you got to create your own character. And the character that I created was kind of like this mixture of Snake from Escape from New York mixed with Rambo. He had like the Rambo bandana mixed with like Commando, like the body armor, and just looked like your typical macho 1980s dual wielding, gun toting, fucking badass machine. So I was like, once I have my badass machine, I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna start lighting shit up. So once I created my character, I hopped in, and then when you hop into the game, basically what it is you're an action hero, and you have to get through, you're shooting a movie, and you have to get through scenes as that character from point A to point B as fast as humanly possible, and rack up as many points by doing cool stunt kills as you can. So stunt kills are hopping off walls, kicking enemies and shooting them while they're in the air, getting headshots obviously. Obviously the more gore you shed and blood you spread around the walls, the more points you get. So the game judges you based off that. Now, I didn't really find myself going back to previous levels to actually beat my score. I was just going back to the levels just to replay them because of how fun they were. So the game has a really high replayability, especially from all the content creation that you can add and that you can download and whatnot from the workshop. You'll definitely want to dive into that stuff because the game can be beat within an hour. It's a very short game. There's only a few chapters, and they take you from rooftops to Wild West bars, saloons, places like that. Even like in Soviet Russia, you get AK-47s and you're shooting these snow dudes. Sound-wise, actually, the game surprisingly sounded a lot better than I thought it would, coming from one guy. The gun sounds sound so meaty, and they're tuned up all the way, like to the point where they're peaking. So it sounds like very fuzzy, but it sounds very deafening at the same time. And when you're shooting multiple guns at once, it just sounds like this giant distorted fucking explosions coming out of even the pistols. It just sound like explosions. It's the most over-the-top ridiculous shit I've ever heard. But the guys flipping, flopping around and just, letting out little yelps is pretty funny as well. I mean, overall, the sound is nothing to write home about as well, but it fits for what the game has to offer. I really like how chaotic it sounded when you're getting shot at by a dozen enemies and you're firing back and your shells are hitting the ground. You have to reload one gun while shooting another. It was hilarious, and it was just absolutely chaotic, and it really added to the atmosphere of trying to survive, because the game is pretty difficult. You don't get any audio cues when you're low on health or any of that type of bullshit. You basically have to keep an eye out on the bottom left side of the screen to see what your health is, and you can get your health all the way up to about 200, but for the most part, you won't know when you're close to death, so you got to keep your eye on that. So the game has your standard layout of keyboard, so I use WASD for up, down, left, right movement. Shift is just like my friend Pedro. Shift is going to slow motion. C is crouch or slide if you're sprinting, which you automatically do anyway. V, if you hit V key, that's for kicking. You can use it to actually kick off walls. Use V and X to kick off walls, kick people in the face, things like that, to do kind of like the little stunt kills. And then obviously left, right mouse button are your left and right weapon. And then F is pick up weapon, G is throw weapon. So as you're fighting people, you're going to run out of ammo pretty frequently. You don't get a ton of ammo per gun, so you're going to be constantly switching between guns, which makes for an awesome time. You shoot one guy, you run out of gun, ammo for one gun, and you quickly grab a gun out of the air and you continue the carnage. And it's exhilarating. It's a lot of fun, and it makes for some cool, super hot type moments, or even my friend Pedro type moments, where you feel like an actual badass, because you got to pay attention to what's going on around the world. There was a few instances, for whatever reason, that when I was playing the game, I couldn't pick up a weapon. I looked it up on the forums, and they said it was a pretty frequent thing that hasn't been addressed yet, like a bug that hasn't been patched. I think it comes right after the first 10 minutes of the game. You're not able to pick up any weapons or throw your weapons. So the first level, a couple times when I was replaying it, I got stuck with the same two pistols, and when I ran out of ammo, I was just running around kicking people in the face trying to get to the end of the level because I couldn't find any ammo anywhere. I couldn't pick up any guns. So that was kind of weird, but I mean, nothing that a quick, escape, quit game and relaunch couldn't fix. So that wasn't bad, but gameplay wise, it's a lot of fun. It doesn't ever really get stale. I messed around with the level editor as well, and I was trying to create some cool gameplay scenarios. I mean, I kept it pretty basic at first, and I created this level I called the pit, where I put myself on a tall platform, and I put like maybe couple dozen enemies down below me, and I spawned myself 2 rocket launchers and then 2 assault rifles that had grenade launchers attached to them. And so I was dual wielding rocket launchers on this platform and just shooting down at the pool of people and watching the limbs fly off and fucking carnage ensue when the rockets hit the ground, and it was just absolutely hysterical. I created another mission where you just start and you pick up a couple guns, and you got to get through 2 panes of glass, and there's like a dozen enemies on each side. So there's about 2 dozen enemies in the level, and it got pretty challenging because they're all shooting at you at once, and you can't really use explosives, so you had to just kind of mow through them with an M60 or an assault rifle. and it's just absolutely hilarious. I'm really excited to actually jump into the more of the content and see what other people have created, because there's a lot of it. You can even go back and not only replay levels, but you can do little scenarios where, for instance, there's a lot of player created levels. I did a restaurant one that was pretty long, and there are actually some of them are longer than the actual campaign missions. So I feel like this game has a lot of longevity to it if you keep your eye on it. And for $12, honestly, I had a good time with it, especially if you're coming back working a full week or just had a bad day and you want to come relieve some steam. This is definitely a game where you get your money's worth, especially from the content creation and the community input. So maximum action, I would definitely recommend this game. Good $12 spend, a lot of fun. Hoping they add a multiplayer update soon. I think that would be a ton of fun. Don't know how it would work, but I'm sure they would figure it out. Thank you guys for watching. If you own Maximum Action, leave a comment. Let me know what you thought about it. If you're thinking about getting it, throw a like on the video as well. It definitely helps the channel grow. It helps us get these cool little indie games out to people. I feel like there's a really negative stigma around video gaming right now because of all the greed from the AAA developers and stuff. So as you guys have noticed, I've been focusing a lot on smaller indie titles to give those guys some credit, because I feel like there's so much good content out there. And even it's not a $60 game, Maximum Action, but for $12 you get good value out of it. I've already put 4 or 5 hours into it, and I just picked it up the other day, and I've only sat down and had 2 play sessions with it. So I'm definitely going to come back for more, and I'm excited to see what else the future has in store for this game. So if you guys are considering picking the game up, or if you've already picked it up, be sure to leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the game. We really appreciate everything you guys do to help us out. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you on the next review.